Are you burnout on your creativity? I mean, are you just absolutely spent and at your end and you stare at a blank screen or the blank sheet of paper and you're just like, I am empty. I don't have anything to contribute to this right now. Today, we're going to talk about creative burnout prevention. Let's get into it. Host Dustin Peed, creative process coach and consultant. I'm so glad to be with you today. Episode 96. We're going to talk about creative burnout prevention and recovery. It's all about sustaining your creativity, protecting what matters most to you. Before we get into that, I want to remind you that I'm here to help creatives know themselves, their process, and their team so that they can create greater things together. If that sounds like something that you need, I would love to chat with you. Hop on my website, click on the Let's Talk button, get on my calendar for a free 30-minute coaching session. I would love to talk about how I can help you release your greatest creativity possible. All right, let's get into today's episode. Look, we've all been there where we've emptied ourselves or we're just through an amazing season of creativity and we are completely drained. But there are some tactics and approaches that I think you can take to prevent this burnout from happening, or when it does happen, to recover quickly from it. First thing I think you need to understand are the warning signs, right? So if you dread Mondays, that's a warning sign. If projects that used to excite you now feel like burdens, that's a warning sign. If you have increased cynicism about all the client requests that are coming in, if that's ratcheting up in your world, that's probably a warning sign that you're headed for burnout. If you have difficulty making even the simplest creative decisions, if you find yourself saying, I just can't right now, or I feel like giving up, resistance to starting new projects, or creative blocks that last longer than they used to, these are all warning signs that you are headed for creative burnout. But I believe there are some strategies that you can implement right away to keep yourself from even getting to those warning signs. First things first, you need to implement some clear boundaries. We've talked about this before on other episodes, specifically on our client relationships. But even within your team, if you're fortunate enough to have a team of people around you, you need to institute some clear boundaries with no-fly zones. Just this past week, recently, I had a day where I needed to spend an entire day focused on one project. And so I let all my clients know, I let all the people that I work with, all the contractors that I know, I said, listen, if you need me this day, you can drop me a message here, but I'm not going to see it until the following day because I've got to get some heads down and work on this. It's that clear communication up front and having some boundaries with some of those no-fly zones. I do those probably once a quarter. I try not to do them too often. But if you need to do that once a week, there's no such thing as too much there unless you're completely hermiting yourself away from everybody else. You need to understand that your time and your creativity are your most valuable assets. Second thing you can do to prevent this burnout strategy, this is a little bit of self-promotion here, but just bear with me for a second. The due dates, DO dates versus your DUE dates, so do versus do. My framework will really help you with that. If you go to dustinpeed.com/free, click on the do versus do framework. And what it's going to help you do is simple steps that are going to seem very elementary at first. It's going to seem like this is dumb, but just stick with it. I promise you, when you get to the other side of it, what it ultimately leads to is margin. And the reason that you're burnt out is because you're living on little to no margin. All right. Next thing you need to do is you need to schedule some fuel or creative fuel or personal renewal days. You need to have one of those every single month. It needs to be a day. If it happens to be on the weekend, that's fine. If you need to block out a day in your calendar during the work week to do it. Here's what I mean. Creative fuel days. I've talked about this before on the podcast in length, but just for summary, a creative fuel day is you go take an entire day to do something or many somethings that refuel you creatively. Is it going to an art museum? Is it going out to dinner? Is it shopping? Is it sitting at home and binging Netflix all day? It doesn't matter. Whatever refuels you creatively, you're going to dedicate an entire day to doing that. Or monthly, you're also going to look at renewal days. These are things that fill up your personal overall well-being tank. Maybe you need a massage. Maybe you need FaceTime, quality time with a group of friends. Maybe you need to take a road trip by yourself. Maybe you need to take a road trip with other people. Whatever it is, you need to get out in nature, hike, golf, whatever it is, whatever fills you up. It fills up your relational tank, your personal tank. That's the renewal day mindset. It renews your mind, it renews your focus, gives you an opportunity to get back in the swing of things. Now, I do want to say about renewal days. Renewal days are not vacation days. Renewal days are specifically designed for you to get focused on or refocused on what you need to get focused on. And it might not be in front of your normal laptop or computer or desk or office situation, but those days are meant for you to recenter on what matters the most. When life comes and you're swerving all around and you're taking lefts and rights where you don't need to, a renewal day at the end of it, you know it works because you've been recentered and refocused back on what you're doing. And you can do that through journaling, through reading, prayer, meditation, whatever it needs to be. Make those an intentional part of your renewal days. Another prevention strategy is to establish weekly review and preview habits. Sometimes we're overwhelmed because we don't know what hits us until it hits us. But when you can see things coming, you can make a plan of defense or a plan of offense to negotiate around those things. And so a weekly preview, it could be at the end of your week on Friday. You could do it for the following week, or like me, I do it on Sunday nights. I come down here, put on some sports, and I'll just sit down with my journal and I'll start previewing out everything that I have going on that particular week. Uh, what my obligations are on the calendar, what my big 3 projects are for the week if nothing else gets done, what I want to feel at the end of each day, what my goals are there, where I'm tracking on my annual or quarterly goals. All of that goes into my weekly preview, which happens probably, I get it done in about 45 minutes to an hour at the most. But that helps me to see what's coming before it's coming and to be prepared for it and make an intentional plan of action. This whole episode about creative burnout prevention is going to be centered around intentionality. Let's face it, all previous 95 episodes of this podcast have been about intentionality. If you want to get to where you're going, if you want something, you have to be intentional about it. And preventing yourself from creative burnout is no different. So weekly review or preview habits, do both, whatever it takes for you. I do mine all in one sitting on Sunday nights. And then create a sustainable daily rhythm. Look, don't be lazy and say, I'm only going to do one thing today. But also don't overwhelm yourself and say, I'm going to do 8 things today. Maybe a good 3 to 4 things is all you need to do on your plate today. And if you're like, well, that's impossible, I have way more to do than 3 things that are on your plate. You probably do. But I would venture to guess that a lot of them you could shoot through the focus funnel and you could eliminate, automate, or delegate a lot of them. A lot of them, more than what you're willing to admit. And if you're not willing to admit it, there's probably a sense of pride there that you need to let go of, invite others into the process. Because if you don't, it will lead to creative burnout. All right, let's talk about some recovery efforts. Recovery efforts meaning that you have already arrived at creative burnout. So how do I get out of it? It's not prevention. How do I stop from getting into it? Hopefully you haven't gotten there. But in the case that it's going to happen sometimes, how do you get out of it? How do you recover from creative burnout? Here's some ways that you can do that. Number 1, take a complete creative pause. Do not create anything for at least 24 or up to 72 hours. For a full day, up to 3 full days, just don't create anything. Take the time that you need, because if you don't do that now, your creativity will suffer in the long run. And you'll find that when you come back, that it'll be back with a fresh new perspective that you didn't realize that you were missing before. Secondly, you can create a DUE task only week to let creative energy rebuild. So the whole week is just going to be about DUE dates, and and we're going to knock things off. And when you knock things off, you're going to be like, man, this feels so good to get things done. I'm back, baby. And I'm back into my grind of sustainable creativity. Change your environment. I do this all the time. I love my office space here. People comment all the time, you got such a cool office space. I love it here. I built this intentionally because I want to be somewhere. I want to create the work that I want to create, or in an environment that I want to be in. But some days I just need to get out of these four walls, and I'll go sit outside at a park somewhere, and I'll take my laptop or a notebook with me, or I'll go to my favorite coffee shop downtown here in our local town, or I will drive into the city and I will go sit somewhere in the city and do some work, or I'll surround myself with different types of people. Changing your environment is a great way to recover from creative burnout. You can temporarily reduce client load if you need to, or you can implement some strict non-work hours. I highly, highly, highly recommend that. So those are some things that you can do to recover from creative burnout. Let's talk just for a moment about system optimization. I know this is what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about your creative process. But listen, a lot of this comes because of poor project management, poor communication, poor time management, or poor resource management. Those are things that will constantly lead you to creative burnout. So I want to invite you to a new resource that I've made for you. It's called the 5 Project Management Pitfalls. These pitfalls will inevitably lead you to creative burnout. So go to dustinp.com/free or dustinp.com/pitfalls. I'll put the link in the show notes, and grab your copy of this free PDF and just post it up on your wall so that every time you're entering into a project, you know exactly what to stay away from, because you're going to protect your creativity, and you're going to protect your time, and you're going to protect your margin with these 5 project management pitfalls. Being aware will keep you from making the same mistakes over and over again. Also, communication. We've talked about this in previous ones. I have some stuff on there as well about how to make your creative meetings win. You can find that on dustinp.com/free. And then overall time management. Listen, hop on my website, grab a 30-minute call with me. Let me help you with your creative process and time management skills so that I can open up more creativity from you and prevent this creative burnout from ever happening. That's all for this week. I hope you found some use in there. If you're going through creative burnout right now, reach out to me. I'd love to just talk with you through that. You can get through this. You're not alone in this. Don't quit. Don't give up. Just shift a couple of your strategies, shift a couple of your habits, and it will get better. Next week, we're back, episode 97. I have a very special guest. Our social media correspondent, Johnny B, is going to be with us to talk about how creatives need to be using social media. I can't wait to talk to you next time on that episode of the Creativity Made Easy podcast. Have a great week.